Welcome to the Revenue Marketing Report powered by Caliber Mind. This is the podcast for B2B marketers looking to get into leadership. I'm your host, Camela Thompson, and today I'm joined by Nicholas Zeisler, or Z, as I'll be calling him throughout this podcast.
Why don't I tell you a little bit about myself?
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
You bet, Camela. Yeah. As you'd said, my name is Nick Zeisler. People call me Z. I am a fractional chief customer officer. And what that means is that I help clients who are suffering from churn or customer loss that is most likely attributable to some of their operational misfires that are leading to gaps between their brand promises and their, what I call their brand delivery. They're telling the world that they are all about this or that or the other thing. And then when the customers interact with them, that's not at all what they're getting in the real world. So what we do is we delve into their internal systems and processes, policies, operations. We fix those things to drive that alignment, which of course, therefore turns into more satisfied, more aligned, more loyal customers and more sales.
So for those of you in marketing wondering what does CX operations have to do with marketing, the answer should be this episode is for you because it's everything. And we're going to talk about why CX ops is marketing's best friend. Z, we chatted about this a bit. Why don't you give us a little bit of the premise here?
Yeah, you bet. A lot of times I'll speak with clients, potential clients who are suffering from this customer churn, and they think, we just need better sales folks. It's like, you probably don't. Well, and if you do, I don't know anything about sales, but good luck with that. But maybe, maybe what's happening is that sales are doing a great job following your marketing. It's like, well, maybe we need better marketing. It's like, I wouldn't even be so sure about that. And not just because I'm not a marketer either, and I can't necessarily help you with that, but is the brand, is everybody involved following marketing's lead? Marketing put a lot of work into your brand promise. They investigated what the market wanted. They investigated what your customers wanted. And then they came out with this brilliant marketing plan. All the way from here's what our mission and vision is, here's what our brand promise is, all the way down to the tiny little things like the font and the color scheme and everything going on. There's so much work going into that. And your customers interact with your brand, whether that be going to your website, walking into your brick and mortar establishment, talking to somebody in your sales team or in your customer care organization, whatever it might be, and then their experience isn't aligned with that. Well, you can't market your way out of that. You can't better sales your way out of that. It's your operations, and you need to look really seriously at how you do the things you do. Look at your systems and your processes, your policies and your operations. And that's where we come in from a process perspective, improve the things that you do so that the output in the real world is more aligned with what your marketing team is trying to tell the world that you're all about. And there are plenty of examples of that.
This really resonates because one of the reasons I got into marketing out of operations was as a technical buyer, I got really frustrated with the gap between the promise and the reality. I really appreciated salespeople and companies that honestly portrayed the product for what it was and were upfront about the shortcomings. I would still buy the product. I was happier because I knew exactly what I was getting and what was on the roadmap.
Camela, that's absolutely the idea. And you talk to any marketer and they'll recognize and they'll tell you themselves that picking a particular market or a certain brand promise, you are picking not the rest of the world. For example, if you want to be the ease of use brand or the most integrable brand, right? And that means that the service or the product that we provide for our customers is all about simplicity. Set it and forget it. Don't have to worry about it. Don't even have to think about us. In fact, forget about us as a brand. And you never have to even look twice at what we do for you and what you do and what you need out of us. That's great. But then when your customers interact with your brand, and I don't just mean when they're leveraging the service that you provide or when they're using the product that you manufacture and deliver to them. I'm talking about when they call you, when they go through the sales process, when they get billed. Are all of those steps easy? Are all of those steps set it and forget it? Well, if they're not, then you've got to look at the operations within even those support organizations and address how those are done and whether or not they're aligned with your brand promise. Now, that's just one brand promise. You could be the luxury brand. You could be the discount brand. Whatever that brand promise is, everything along the entire customer's journey needs to adhere to that and deliver that experience. Otherwise, you're missing the boat and you're missing an opportunity. You've got a gap.
And I'm hearing a couple really big themes here as it applies to marketing, one of which is aligning your expectations with what the product can do today. And the other piece of that is really, I think, I feel, and I think that there's a big misalignment between the teams, and there isn't that feedback mechanism that has to be there in order to understand where we may be falling short and we don't know about, or where we're overpromising and CS isn't able to meet us there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Engineers and the nerds down in the product department are always given a hard time about not being customer focused enough. They're just so in love with their own engineering and building the coolest next great mousetrap that they don't think enough about, well, what is the customer trying to accomplish? What is the customer trying to do? What are their problems? What are their jobs to be done, as the saying goes? And that's really unfair, because even though the engineers may not, and I'm kind of an engineer myself, so my heart goes out to them, because even if they don't necessarily get it right every time, and even if they are somewhat enamored with their own brilliance, they are at least trying to concentrate. They are trying to solve your customers' problems, and any new great feature and any new attachment that they have to whatever it is that they're creating is intended, at least, to be functional and deliver on behalf of your brand to your customers. But as I was alluding to before, there are a lot of other parts of your organization that aren't even thinking about your customer's experience with your brand. And here's just another example. If you deliver perfectly your brand experience, whatever that brand, again, I was talking about ease of use before, but say that it's the luxury brand. It's white glove concierge service. We make you feel super special if you're a client or if you're a customer of ours, every time you interact with us and every time you come into contact with our brand. Okay, well, I want something that you offer, but I want it a little bit different than what you normally offer it. I want it kind of like cafeteria sort of a thing. It's like, I realize that you do this, but I really want only 6 of these instead of 8 of these. Can I get it like that? Well, what's the experience with the legal department and the fulfillment department? What is that experience? Do those folks believe that part of their charter is to deliver that brand promise when they're interacting with your customer, when your customer wants something that's kind of off the menu that way? If they're not, well, that's an operational gap. Your customer would probably say to you, the engineering of this was right on. I felt so special. And when it was delivered to my position, when it was delivered to my work site, it was done so in such a nice, lovely, luxurious way. You absolutely knocked it out of the park. But let me tell you what it was like working with your accounts receivable department. I did not feel like that was a luxury experience. Are they even thinking about that? And that's where CX comes into play. It's the entire journey, and it's a dedication to that brand promise along every touch point.
Yeah, and I'm having conflicting thoughts in my head. It's as somebody with an operational background myself, being in marketing and seeing the end-to-end experience and the issues along the way, it's very tempting to try to go fix those things or champion to fix those things. But that's where your role should come in, and people should advocate for somebody in CX ops to come in and really think about those things so that marketers can focus. But I do want to talk for a minute about things where we should be, I don't want to say sticking our nose into other departments' business, but you kind of know what I mean.
Camela, you're absolutely right. In fact, the whole role of CX, if it's done right, if it's approached in the right fashion, should be enterprise wide.
Mhm.
It's not about, and here's the thing. You talk about CX, there's a lot of confusion out there. I don't even really introduce myself as CX anymore, because I end up having to explain, no, I don't work in the contact center. No, it's not about customer support. It's not about customer success. It's actually an operational type of work. But the trick of doing this, getting this right and doing this right, is that it's enterprise-wide.
Mhm.
Every interaction point with your customer needs to advance your brand promise. And if you're not doing that anywhere along the line, you're hurting your brand and you are driving customers away from you. And you can think of obvious examples. And for example, luxury brand. I always like to beat up on a luxury brand because it's so obvious to make an anecdotal example that if you're flying a luxury airline and your experience at the gate is like cows being herded onto a plane, it's so obvious that you're missing that luxury experience. Even if when you get on the plane, the flight attendants are multilingual and taking care of you and giving you a foot rub and bringing you champagne, these sort of over the top, superlative, luxurious experiences. But what I'm going to remember is it was such a pain in the neck getting on this plane and how I felt like I wasn't special at all at the gating area. That's what's going to stand out because that's the sore thumb that isn't representative of your brand promise all along that entire experience. For that matter, if I have to call and make a schedule change and I have to call into your contact center and I'm not greeted with a hello, sir, and sorry about that, sir, and I'm not treated with a luxury experience, that's going to stand out as well, right? Do I get the bill sent to me in a luxury portfolio? Perhaps, I don't know. Maybe that's part of the luxury experience, but it's all along that entire journey and all of those touch points.
If I can attempt to summarize the most important point coming out of this is that too often B2B companies think of segments. We think about optimizing marketing and it's just the top of the funnel, and optimizing sales and it's just getting the contract signed. What I'm hearing is we don't spend enough time, or we should spend more time thinking of the end-to-end experience holistically instead of, yes, this is resonating a lot. And I'm also having flashbacks. So standing in airports waiting for people with over 50 pounds in their bags to shuffle through their stuff and figure out what they're going to throw out. It's just terrible.
Yeah, but Camela, you nailed it when you said holistic. That is truly the idea. This is operationalizing of the great work that marketing does. All of the work that they do to define and describe and design a brand promise needs to be put into operational action so that your company is also delivering on that brand promise. Good friend of mine who's in marketing said, Z, we do all the brand design and you do the brand delivery. And that's really what it comes down to.
Let's just brainstorm before we end this segment. I just feel like we have so little time to talk about this, but we're going to hit the next topic tomorrow. But before we do that, let's talk about a couple ways that marketing can better work with someone like you to get more information on how they should adapt to their message throughout the company.
What's funny is that marketing is really the best example of the proper leverage and use. And I know we're going to talk about this in future discussions of the voice of the customer. I talk to potential clients and to brands and companies all the time, and they're so proud and so excited about their VOC program, the Voice of the Customer program. And I say, great, what are you doing with it? And they'll go on about their NPS or their CSAT and talk about their KPIs. And I'm like, that's awesome, but what are you doing with it? And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And there's never any, here's what we're doing with it. When I talk to my friends in marketing, they'll talk about how, well, we had this campaign in Q1 and it was awesome. It was great. What we found out from feedback from our target audience was this, that, and the other. So what we did is we tweaked it and we changed it a little bit. And in a Q2, we did this and then we did this. We further refined it in Q3. And so as we went into Q4, based on the feedback and the reactions that we got from the market and from our target audience, we had the perfect, refined, great message, and that's what we went with in Q4. It's like, well, that is a microcosm of exactly what you should be doing with that VOC. Marketing is, I think, oftentimes the best example of the mechanics of how CX works, which is listen to your customers, get those customer insights, and then act on them. Most important thing that you can do. And marketing does that all the time. I don't know why the rest of the company necessarily doesn't.
Well, I mean, if there's a place we could improve, it's when and where we're collecting that feedback and integrating it into the campaign. So if we're just focused on top of funnel, we may get really good at that, but we may be bleeding customers because we're out of alignment somewhere. Yep. So I'm hearing that we need to talk about finding the voice of the customer, and that is tomorrow's topic. So I'll see you then. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Revenue Marketing Report. Please tell 2 friends, subscribe, download, whatever you can helps. And for those of you looking for more great content like this, check out caliberbuying.com.